And joining us via Zoom is Graeme Smith, the BHA Head of Handicapping. Graeme, how do we find you?
Yeah, very well, Anthony. Thanks. Yourself?
Very well, thank you. Very well. A pleasure to have a look back, and we'll try and remember exactly what we saw from our two-year-olds at the back end of last year. Just over the list as a whole for you, last year we saw City of Troy top rated for the Colts on 125. We're seeing a slightly lower top rated this year. Yeah,
we have Shadow of Light. He's rated 120. In terms of the historical precedent, we have. The two-year-old ratings have been going back till 1978, it was. And there have only been 2 years where the champion two-year-old's been rated lower than the 120 mark. They were 2011, where Camelot and De Beers shared top honours at 119, and 2014 as well, the Dewhurst winner Bellardo, he was 119. So he's not an outstanding champion by any means, but he has been a very, very good two-year-old. And equally, there's a huge amount of depth behind him. There are no fewer than 8 horses rated between 117 and 120. That is a much tighter packed field at the top than we would usually expect. So on the one argument, you may say there's no standout, but that sets the scene for a really, really exciting classic season for these horses in the year ahead.
Because as it should be, Graeme, we don't exactly know where the limits of these horses' ability should be at the end of their two-year-old career. It sets up for a particularly tantalising flat season if the glass is half full.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do rate two-year-old form. We don't rate three-year-old prospects. But, I mean, let's not dumb him down. Shadow of Light, he's had a fantastic season. He is the 8th two-year-old winner from the last 10 years, the 8th Dewhurst winner from the last 10 years to be crowned champion two-year-old. He's just the first Middle Park winner since US Navy flag in 2017 to do that, and he is only the 3rd horse in the last 100 years to win both those races, following on from Diocese and US Navy flag. Here he is on screen now. This was his flagship performance in the Middle Park, and you could argue the race was a little bit thin, but it's a devastating turn of foot he showed here. He came back on the bridle 2.5 furlongs out, and when Buick's pressed the button, he shot clear. Whistlejacket, the runner-up, he'd gone in their favourite. He'd won the Group 1 Mornay prior to this. You could argue there wasn't a huge amount of depth in the field apart from that. Missing horses were Rashabar and Electrolyte. They'd been the first 2, of course, in the Coventry. They both went on to run with real credit in other pattern races. Cool Hoof Luke, who'd been the only horse to ever beat Shadow of Light so far in the Jim Crack, he was missing. There were a couple of others as well, so it wasn't a hugely deep race, but they do say you can't do any more than beat what's in front of you, and by God, he did that well.
Graeme, it's George here. I just wondered, from your perspective, when you won the Dewhurst, was it a hard race to get a mark on, because obviously it was so messy in regards to there was 2 groups and on that soft ground that everyone was looking for better ground. How did you rate that race in the Dewhurst?
Firstly, yeah, it was a bit harder to get a grip on. It was very tactical. I don't know if people remember that, but there was a field of 5 went to post. They split into 2 groups. Shadow of Light was in a group of 3 on the far side, and a couple of furlongs out, it looked like he was really up against it. You could argue he did really well to win the race, and he certainly crossed the track, so he covered a lot more ground to get near his 2 rivals and give him a race. Second horse, Expanded, he'd only run once previously. He'd won his debut a week before, so that was a big ask for him, and he fared really well. The third horse, we did have a bit of a line on him, Ancient Truth. He'd won Superlative back in July, and that form had stood up well. So through the horses he'd beaten and how they'd got on in subsequent races, we did have an idea of where he should stand. And yeah, we used that. But I've got to say, I mean, you would like a bit more to hang a race on, including the time. The time wasn't fantastic in the Dewhurst either, so it was a bit of a head scratcher, yeah.
The horse I'm really looking forward to seeing next year, or this year, I should say, Graeme, is Late Victoria, who was achieving things that seem scarcely believable when you think about campaigning of juveniles in this day and age. She's the highest rated filly since Lady Aurelia, I believe, when she was rated 121 in 2016. She tops the fillies list. I guess it wouldn't have been too much of a stretch to think she could have topped the list as a whole.
Do you know what? That is an interesting angle, because this day in the Cheveley Park that she won, she did clock a faster time than Shadow of Light did when he won the Middle Park. Also, the day she won the Moyglare, she clocked a significantly faster time than Scorthy Champ had done in the National Stakes. I mean, this was her flagship performance, 1:19. She came from the 7 furlong Moyglare, and in my eyes, there was a doubt whether she'd be quite as effective dropping back to 6 furlongs for the Cheveley Park. I acknowledge the Dam was a 6 furlong Group 1 winner, quiet reflection. But by God, that was a fantastic performance, wasn't it? She was ridden fairly positively and powered away from a very, very deep and representative field. The second filly, Daylight, had just come off the back of finishing third against Colts in the Group 1 Mornay. Further back in the race, Arabian Dusk had won the Duchess of Cambridge. Babouche had beaten Whistle Jacket in the Group 1 Phoenix Stakes. And even further back, Celandine was the Lowther winner. I mean, that was probably the best field, the best fillies field assembled in the entire year. And she absolutely hammered them. I mean, to put her into context, she's rated 119, and not only is she tough, she's won 3 Group 1 races, 3 different distances, 3 different countries, overcame a massive amount of trouble to win at the Breeders' Cup. But Aidan O'Brien's had 8 two-year-old champion or joint champion fillies, and Lake Victoria sits second in that list. She's just a pound behind the Great Minding, but on 119 at this stage of her career, that puts her right upside some of the greats. Attraction, who went on to win Guineas, maybe 2 Guineas. Fenskill Bio won 2 Guineas, was touched off in a third, and Zarkava as well. And she won the French Guineas, and she went on to win the Arc. I mean, she's in very exalted company at 119, and both the heart and the head tell you she absolutely deserves to be there. Can't wait to see what she does this year.
And a pound higher than her stablemate Opera Singer was at this stage of her career this time last year. Well, as we've seen with those first 2 horses, Graeme, we saw them plenty, and they were given every chance to get to those lofty ratings. The 2 in behind, it Expanded and the Lion and Winter, we only saw them twice, and they've already clocked out ratings of 118. The Lion and Winter, I mean, the Acom, that was something special, wasn't it?
Oh, this is the story of what might have been. His 2-year-old career stretched no more than 5 weeks in the summer, July and into August. Very impressive the first time at Kempton, the Curragh, sorry, and then over to York for the Acom. And I've been handicapping 2-year-olds for 9 years now, and this is as deep a Group 3 as I can ever remember. The first 3 broke the track record. Admittedly, the same thing happened in the Juddmonte, so that was in part down to the speed of conditions on the day and the strong tailwind. Also, though, this time stood up really well against every other race on the card. This guy's got 12 furlongs on both sides of his pedigree, so to be doing what he is doing over 7 furlongs as a 2-year-old is absolutely amazing. If you look back at the form as well, Wimbledon Hawkeye, second there, he was an impressive winner of the Royal Lodge the following month. The third didn't run again, the Godolphin horse. But if you go further back in the race, I think the 4th place was the Waco Kid. He won a Group 3 later in the season, the Somerville Tattersall. And even the 5th, Mr. Chaplin, he had very, very solid nursery form. And I think he was 4th or 5th in the listed race later on. So the time of the race was fantastic. The form stood up absolutely brilliantly. Not only has he beaten them, but he's really strung them out. I mean, it's no surprise this guy was even money favourite on the morning of the Dewhurst until that Stone Bruise showed itself. There's every chance he could have been champion 2-year-old if he'd run in the Dewhurst and won the Dewhurst. As I say, it's a story of what might have been for his 2-year-old season, but if there's a horse within the 42 2-year-olds in the classification that I absolutely can't wait to see this year, it's the Lion in Winter. He shows more speed than his pedigree suggests, so possibly a Guineas, but surely he's going to make his way to the Derby beyond that, and I cannot wait to see how he does.
He's a perfect 2 from 2, and the filly Desert Flower is a perfect 4 from 4 so far. And she blew her rivals away in the Fillies Mile. And worth noting as well, she's higher rated than any of Charlie Appleby's Group 1 winning 2-year-old fillies that he's had in his career. Waheda, Wild Illusion, La Pelosa, Wild Beauty, they all won top-level races at 2, but none have been rated as highly as this filly.
Absolutely right, Anthony. She's, I think he's been training, 10, 11 years now, Charlie? And this is the highest rated 2-year-old filly, as you say, on 117. She's a staying filly as far as a mile goes. She is unbeaten in her 4 starts. She won the Mayhill at Doncaster. You see the filly in second there, January, Aidan O'Brien's filly. She'd beaten her a length and a half at Doncaster, over to the Fillies Mile that we just witnessed, and that was a proper test of stamina over a mile. And she came into her own that day. She was so strong out of the dip. 5.5 lengths was the margin over January there. I can't wait to see how she gets on if both she and Lake Victoria take to the Guineas in May. But you would have to think, well, a mile could be the top end for Lake Victoria. It's surely going to be the bottom end for Desert Flower. It'd be no surprise to see her make her way to the Musidora, possibly the Oaks after that. But we do have a really strong set of fillies, 2-year-olds last year, 3-year-olds this year. I think there are 12 in the classification. These are the 2 at the top. There's a couple of French fillies as well, have loads and loads of potential for the year ahead. There's depth with the colts, but there's not a superstar. The fillies, we've probably got more than one superstar at the minute, and that's an exciting scene to see.
And in terms of a dark horse, Graeme, we might have seen that very horse on the same card as Desert Flower bolting up in the fillies mile, because her stablemate Verse of Love created a big impression when getting off the mark in tidy fashion, despite looking nowhere near the finished article.
Absolutely. Now, there's 2 Godolphin fillies here over on the left, but you're right to highlight the royal blue cap. That's Verse of Love. The filly she's passing is Wild Angel, who finished her 3-race juvenile season rated 76. Verse of Love absolutely kills her from this point onwards. I don't think Buick's ever thrown the kitchen sink at her, but if you just look at the way she strides out from the dip, she quickly puts 5 lengths between herself and that 76 rated filly. I don't think this is the bottom of her ability either. I think there's a lot more to come. That was 7 furlongs. She'll definitely stay a mile. She's got loads of presence about her physically. She's a lengthy filly. She's really imposing, really impressive to look at. I'm told she's out in Dubai at the minute, and we'll see her in the UAE 1,000 Guineas. It's not a big jump to imagine that going really well and seeing her in the Newmarket Guineas playing arguably second fiddle to Desert Flower, almost certainly carrying the white cap. But it wouldn't surprise me if she played a major role in that. And I usually like to find a dark horse or 2 for the year ahead that ran only once as a 2-year-old. I don't recall seeing a 2-year-old last season that ran only once that's anywhere near as exciting as she is.
It's a wonderful time of the year, Graeme, isn't it? Dreams are still, well, they're still long alive. They're still going to be alive for a couple of months yet, because we're focused on jump racing. Thank you for joining us this evening, and speak soon.
Pleasure, Anthony. Thank you.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.